Imagine waking up thousands of years ago. There are no hospitals, no supermarkets, no clean drinking water, no modern homes, and no emergency services. A small injury could become deadly. A failed hunt could mean starvation. A harsh winter could wipe out an entire group. Dangerous animals were everywhere, and humans had no antibiotics, vaccines, or modern medicine. So here is the strange question. If ancient humans lived under such brutal conditions, why didn't they simply go extinct? The answer is not that ancient humans were stronger than us in every way. In fact, many ancient people probably died young, and human populations sometimes became dangerously small. But humans had one extraordinary advantage. We were incredibly good at adapting, cooperating, and learning from one another. Survival was rarely about one individual being powerful. It was about groups of humans becoming smarter together. One of the biggest threats was food. Ancient humans could not walk into a store when they were hungry. They had to find food themselves. They hunted animals, collected fruits, roots, seeds, nuts, insects, shellfish, and anything else their environment could provide. But the most important skill was not simply finding food, it was knowing where and when to find it. Humans learned seasonal patterns. They noticed when certain plants appeared, when animals migrated, when fish moved closer to shore, and when particular fruits became ripe. Knowledge accumulated over generations. A child could learn from parents where water was found, which plants were safe, and which animals were dangerous. Every generation inherited information that helped the next one survive. Then there was the problem of predators. Ancient humans were not the fastest animals, the strongest animals, or the best armed animals. A large predator could easily overpower a lone human, but humans discovered something much more powerful than claws or teeth: cooperation. People could travel in groups, watch for danger, protect children, and warn one another. If one person spotted a predator, others could react immediately. At night, groups could stay close together, maintain fires, and take turns watching. A human alone was vulnerable. A group of humans was a completely different creature. And this cooperation went way beyond protection. Humans shared food. They cared for injured members of their group. They helped raise children. They taught skills. They remembered important places. This created something extremely unusual in the animal world. Humans could survive even when an individual was weak, because the group itself became a survival system.
Another major reason humans survived was our ability to use tools. A stone could become a cutting tool. A sharp piece of bone could become a weapon. Wood could become a spear. Eventually, humans developed increasingly complex technologies for hunting, clothing, shelter, cooking, and transportation. But tools were only useful because humans could teach other humans how to make them. Imagine discovering a useful technique by accident. If you died without teaching anyone, that knowledge disappeared. But if you demonstrated it to your children, friends, or neighbors, the knowledge could survive long after you were gone. This ability to preserve knowledge may have been one of humanity's greatest survival advantages. Fire was another revolutionary breakthrough. Fire provided warmth, light, protection, and a way to cook food. Cooking could make many foods easier to digest and safer to eat. Fire also allowed humans to live in colder environments and remain active after sunset. Instead of simply accepting the environment as it was, humans began changing the environment to make survival easier. But ancient humans still faced disasters that no tool could completely prevent. Climate changed. Ice ages came and went. Droughts could destroy food sources. Floods could transform landscapes. Animals disappeared from regions. Entire groups could be forced to move. And humans moved. This is another important part of the story. Humans were not trapped in one environment. When conditions became difficult, groups could migrate into new territories. They crossed grasslands, forests, deserts, mountains, and eventually oceans. Migration gave humans another survival strategy. If the environment changed, humans could search for a new environment. Of course, migration was dangerous. People could become lost. They could face unfamiliar animals, climates, and landscapes. But humans carried something more valuable than physical supplies: knowledge. They remembered rivers, mountains, coastlines, stars, animal trails, and seasonal patterns. Over time, humans became remarkably good at navigating unfamiliar landscapes. There was also another powerful advantage: curiosity. Humans constantly experimented. What happens if this stone hits another stone? Can this plant be eaten? Can this animal be trapped instead of chased? Can a shelter be built here? Can food be stored for later? Can fire be controlled? Can water be collected? Many experiments probably failed. Some may even have been dangerous, but successful discoveries could spread through the group. This created a powerful cycle: try, fail, learn, remember, teach, improve. And that cycle allowed humans to solve problems that no single generation could solve alone.
Perhaps the most surprising reason humans survived is that ancient humans were not actually living in a world completely separate from other humans. They formed social networks. Groups could sometimes exchange materials, tools, food, information, and partners. These connections reduced the danger of one group becoming completely isolated. If one community suffered a disaster, knowledge and genes could continue through connections with neighboring groups. But survival was never guaranteed. There were periods in human history when populations became extremely small. Environmental changes, disease, food shortages, and other pressures could have pushed human groups close to extinction. Some ancient human populations disappeared entirely. Neanderthals, Denisovans, and other human relatives left evidence of lives that eventually ended as distinct populations. So why did our lineage survive? There was no single moment when humans won. Instead, survival came from thousands of small advantages accumulating over an enormous amount of time. We learned to cooperate. We learned to communicate. We learned to control fire. We created tools. We adapted our diets. We migrated. We cared for vulnerable members of our groups. And most importantly, we passed knowledge forward. A modern human might look at an ancient person and think, how could they possibly survive without all the things we have today? But perhaps the better question is the opposite. How did they survive with almost nothing? They survived because almost nothing was never really nothing. They had hands capable of making tools. They had brains capable of solving problems. They had language and memory. They had imagination. They had cooperation. And they had thousands of generations of accumulated knowledge. Every time an ancient parent taught a child which plant was safe, every time a hunter showed another person how to track an animal, every time someone discovered a better way to build a shelter, humanity became slightly harder to destroy. And that may be the real reason we are still here. Ancient humans did not survive because the world was kind to them. They survived because they learned how to become difficult for the world to defeat. And when you look at humanity today, with cities, medicine, technology, agriculture, and global communication, you are seeing the result of that ancient survival strategy continuing for thousands of years. The tools changed, the environment changed, the dangers changed, but one thing remained the same. Humans survived by learning, adapting, and surviving together. And perhaps that is the greatest survival skill our species has ever possessed.